Patty Apostolides, and I am the director of the Hellenic Writers Group. Thank you for attending today's presentation by Andie Petrides. I will first introduce her in her own words, followed by Andie's talk, and then we will have some time in the end for any questions and answers. So again, please keep your microphones muted throughout the talk. Thank you. Communication is what makes the world go round, and humor is the key. This phrase and the introduction that will follow were both written by Andie. They describe her philosophy and outlook in life. Andie joined the Hellenic Writers Group over a year ago. She's been an active member ever since. During our meetings, the way she presents her works in a lyrical and poetic manner has inspired me to invite her to share with us this art of speaking. For every author, at some point in their lives, will be required to speak about the writing. Andie Petrides grew up in Amman, Jordan. I hope I said it right, Amman, Jordan. Yes. With her mother, father, younger sister, and grandmother, a typical Greek family in a foreign environment. They were part of the small Greek community that had adopted Jordan as their second patrida, or home, after fleeing Anatolia when the Turks invaded it. That was over 3 generations ago, the Greek diaspora. Always a good student, Andie found refuge in reading. Her vivid imagination made her the heroine of most stories she read, to the bemusement of her mother when she saw her prancing about the house, totally in character of whatever story she was inhabiting. She wrote a few good stories and poems in her teens, but soon life superimposed itself, and handwritten masterpieces languished at the bottom of drawers and in the cobwebs of memory. Although her passion was always languages, she focused on science as an undergraduate to please her father. She is fluent in 4 languages: English, French, Greek, and Arabic. Andie married when she was 20 and has raised her family of 1 girl and 2 boys as an expatriate in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, United Arab Emirates, where she followed her husband for business. They have lived there for 37 years until her husband retired in 2009. After 20 years of working in international corporations, mostly in human resources and administration, Andie decided to go back to college. Her children had grown up and she was itching to return to learning. At age 59, she received her master's degree in international business. Her grown-up children pressed her to reveal the dates of parent-teacher meetings at the university so they could go and check on her progress, because she used to do that when they were young. There is a moment in time when an action, however small, unearths long-forgotten dreams. Sitting in a hospital bed 5 days after a major operation, Andie asked for a notebook and to write her memoirs about her experience, and she has not looked back since. Vivid and funny descriptions of needles and tubes tumbled around in her head. It was exhilaration that coursed through her bruised veins, and she felt strongly the compulsion to write. She says, "Being alive, being here, I'm one of the chosen. I have to write this down." Actions have equal and opposite reactions, don't they? Andie believes that her memory was a direct victim of cocktails, of deadly chemo sessions. However, her delight in being a survivor has strengthened the way she didn't think possible. What a small price to pay for life back, a second chance, and the opportunity to give back. It helped her express her humanity better, lead with empathy, and share a new, unquenchable joie de vivre, joy of living, totally in contrast to her quiet and original loner self. Shortly afterwards, Andie and her husband obtained their green cards to be closer to their son and his family in the USA. Today, they divide their time between Jordan and the US. What is going to happen to their plans with the meddling of COVID-19? Andie has faith in God's plan, whatever the result may be. In her quest to meet new people and to make friends after the family's return to Jordan from Dubai, Andie joined Toastmasters in 2010. 2 years later, she became the president. She has found it to be an enriching experience. Toastmasters is an organization that teaches leadership and public speaking skills. Being a Toastmaster makes one a better listener, and in Andie's case, a more patient one. Members learn by interacting with their peers in a social educational setting. A few months ago, Andie started proofreading articles for the only English language parenting magazine in Jordan, Family Flavors. She loves her work, and being in close contact with his publishing house has also given her the opportunity to have her own articles and stories published in the magazine. Her articles have also appeared in the Jordan Times. Each life has so many personal facets. This introduction paints Andie in the colors of her life. In her talk today, she will speak candidly about her background and share her writing and speaking tips. She will also read some of her work, old and new, where we can observe the evolution of her style. I give the screen to Andie.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you. Today I shall speak about the power of words, from inspiration to delivery. I can't see you because I have my speech in front of me, but I will move back and forth. When I was 12, I knew everything. When I was 50, I knew very little. Today, I am still exploring, and that is the beauty of learning, my friends. Many heartfelt thanks to Director Ipatia Apostolides, respected author and role model, for trusting me to talk to this audience and to explore writing, reading, and speaking the Andie way. The most important word to me is not love. It is not wealth. It is not friends. It is what links all of those. That word is communication. I think communication drives the world, links the love, the friends, humans, animals, and plants between themselves and the world beyond their own. Babies cry, artists paint, writers write. A mother kisses her child. An angry person lashes out. Pain expresses itself, and so does love. Even madness manifests itself. Countries go to war when their communication breaks down. It takes two to tango. You are one, your audience is the other. Your words are the music, and it is up to the rhythm of your style to convey your message. If your message is received negatively, it may lead to conflict, or worse, indifference. I never thought I had any particular gift, but I knew I wrote well. Speaking? Forget it. Reading out loud? Newly discovered talent. When Director Ipatia Apostolides asked me to share the secrets of my communication style, I thought to myself, what? I accepted, because I too wanted to find out what made me tick. The contributing factors, I believe, are environment, upbringing, and reading a lot. People who start reading at a very young age develop a golden relationship with words that cannot be taught. I've always loved words and everything to do with them. When I was a preteen at boarding school, it was words that kept me company. I think I must have read all the books in the school library in the 4 years I spent there. I wonder whether the nuns knew or realized that some of those books were not quite meant for 12-year-olds. But like a good little girl, my favorites were the Nancy Drew adventures and the famous 5 stories, all about kids and for kids. Adventures, getting into trouble, and happy endings. Like Nancy Drew, I was a heroine who saved everyone in need of saving, who braved and overcame hardships, and who was a perfect fictional character. Don't get me wrong, I was an excellent student and a nice kid, too shy perhaps, but then I lived mostly in my imagination. I started writing at 12 or 13. I still have those handwritten stories. My style at the time reflected the books I was reading. You should have seen my romance stories, beautifully written in the best flowery 18th century language. I found one of my copybooks from 1966. I don't know if you can see that. Handwritten story, still there, all of it. It's called Fair Indian. And here is a poem I wrote in 1964. My handwriting wasn't bad, actually, and it rhymed. It was still the fashion that poems rhymed. Now, sharing my story. If I had read the introduction, like Patty did, I would have realized that I am repeating myself, but there you are. My memory is not what it should be. Before I launch into the prose of my prowess, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My environment lent a lot to who I am today, how I think, what is important for me to keep an open mind about, and how I reach out to others with my writing, and more recently, with my speaking. I grew up in a melting pot of cultures. My parents were Greek, and I grew up in Jordan in the Middle East. My earliest schooling was entirely in French. My sister and I spoke Arabic with our friends, Greek at home, with the threat of the pandofla, flip-flop on the bottom if we didn't. And I used to think and read mainly in English. When you are very young, you tend to think everyone around you has the same kind of background, don't you? Breezing in and out from one culture to the other made me open-minded and easily accepting of differences. I find it sad when I come across the narrow-mindedness of some who have never been exposed to the wealth of other cultures, even if only in reading. Being Greeks living in Jordan, we were considered foreigners, but welcome foreigners. When we visited Greece at the time, we were looked down upon as you Greeks from abroad. Living in Abu Dhabi and Dubai for almost 4 decades, the laws in that country did not allow non-locals to belong. Becoming a US resident a few years ago revived my longing to belong to a country made up of people like me, coming from all corners of the globe. This year, I was on the verge of applying for my US citizenship, but with the intrusion of COVID-19 and my inability to travel back to Washington this past spring, that may remain an indefinite dream. Today, I was talking to my son on the phone by chance, and I told him that the embassy has not changed the rules, and he told me that they were not very keen on me going. So indefinite is the dream. I have till October 12. Let's see. Having lived in so many environments, I identify with people of all cultures without judgment. I also firmly believe that since we have not chosen to be born Black or white or brown, Christian or Muslim, we must keep an open mind, embrace the differences and learn from others, because we are all equal gifts from God. We were a small Greek family within a small Greek community within the larger Arab community of Amman, Jordan. Most of the Greeks in Amman had ancestors who had fled Anatolia upon the loss of their land, their gold, and their homes to the invading Turks. But not a single one lost his or her identity. This they carried preciously through countries and mountains and sea to reach a destination which would welcome them and allow them to plant new roots. They treasured their culture, nurtured and instilled it in their children and grandchildren, from language to history, dances to folklore, special Greek jams to embroidered handkerchiefs, keeping it alive in every way they could. I remember my family used to have Greek celebrations of name days, which was not the norm around us. And those Greek coffee mornings, oh, those sublime feasts etched in every Greek child's memory. Greek mamas, mothers, knew that Kyria Efis morning was the first Wednesday of the month, and Kyria Maria welcomed anyone who was free to drop in on the third Thursday of the month. That was one way to keep the culture alive, to share recipes and lives, and for us children to have the semblance of being Greek between the baklavas and the frequent scoldings to behave. Our parents did such a good job raising us without the normal props that for us Greek pedia, children, we did not realize we were living outside of Greece. My first scholarship was at 10 years old. That was the transition from elementary to middle school. I left the safe haven of the family home in Amman to go to boarding school in Jerusalem, cradle of all religions, 100 kilometers away, which is about 70 miles. My school was in the old city of Jerusalem, and I spent 4 amazing years in the Holy Land. The abrupt end to that idyllic period in my life came with the first shots fired the day the Six-Day War erupted in the Middle East on June 6, 1967, when Israel invaded Jordan. It was also the first day of final exams. We students left the school in terror. My friend Katia and I got a ride with a lady who had come to collect her daughter from the boarding school, and she took us with her back to Amman. I remember 2 things about that day, other than my frustration and missing the exams I was so ready for. My best friend Lina, who fled later that afternoon under fire, told me that they stopped frequently along the way and hid behind the car as planes swooped down around them, shooting away. My mother was furious that I brought back a suitcase filled with books instead of my clothes and my sheets, which I had happily left behind. I told you my first love was words. I shall fast forward the rest of the story, where I got my second scholarship to study in England, then attended the University of Jordan, where I met my future husband, marriage, and 37 years of living in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, raising a family of 3 kids, working, and in general, not writing. In the back of my mind, I knew I could write. That was enough for me. I was basking on my imaginary laurels of having written a few stories back in the day. At some point, I completed a writing course by correspondence at Cambridge University in London, for which I got an A. Yay. The trigger. What makes one do something? Lots of small factors come together to trigger an action. For me, my hospital memoirs were one trigger. Writing down the bedtime stories to my granddaughter were another. Becoming a Toastmaster in 2010 introduced me to the world of speaking and presentations. More recently, a chance meeting with Miss Hind Lara Mango, publisher and managing director of Family Flavors magazine, at a wellness conference led to the amazing opportunity for me to become the proofreader of their widely popular magazine. This was truly a lifeline in the era of COVID-19, and I am immensely grateful to her. I shall read to you now an excerpt also written in 2017, I think, with some prompt words. It's quite short, but this is my writing. The sun's rays peeked through the dancing canopy of leaves on the patio. I followed the hypnotic movement for a few minutes, relaxed and floating, having rested my open book in my lap. An involuntary smile sneaked on my lips and a sigh escaped. Mommy. I whispered to no one in particular, because that was the time of day my mother liked the most. The hesitation between day and night. The time when things got concluded or started, depending if you were a day person or a night person. Like an automaton, I rose and went back inside, straight to the special drawer where I kept the last tangible things that my mother touched regularly when she was alive and among us. I swear I could hear her tinkling laughter and feel her delight that we were going to speak. Well, almost. Quickly, before the spell was broken, I brought out my small collection of her things and hurried back to my soft cushions on the patio. In the meantime, the sun's rays had decided to bow a little more and make the setting a little more mysterious, the light fading quickly, soon to be snuffed, like her, leaving behind the hint of a glow, making me opening the bag quickly before the thread was broken. I quickly spread the valuable things around me, and that's where I'll stop. Now, to the second part of my presentation about writing, reading, and speaking. Socrates said, "Know thyself." I believe that writing introduces us to ourselves and leads us to a better understanding of who we really are. It is only then that we can reach out and touch another. We grow when we write. Our hearts and minds are brimming with emotion, knowledge, love, frustration, anger, and of course, ideas. Writing helps us find a mental and emotional balance in our lives. With self-discovery, we can begin to grow. Live your growth. And when you become comfortable with yourself, you will be able to reflect that in your writing and your speaking. You will become believable to your audience, not before. Don't you find, though, that the most creative ideas form in your brain the moment you are the furthest away from paper and pen or computer? Mine come just as I drift off to sleep, float in, float out. And I think tonight, this afternoon, one of us said the exact same thing, that the thoughts come and the thoughts go, and that's it. Why do we write? If anybody would like to propose something? Okay. The same well of creativity inspires both writers and speakers. Forgive me if some of what I say today is more than familiar to you as writers. But speaking and presentation also start with writing. I'll be using the cues of presentation, the nonverbal communication with you, which will unfold within this speech. A writer links his or her reader to the world of knowledge and imagination. Calligraphy, penmanship, and elegant letter writing have morphed into computer strokes and Twitter shorts. Yet, We still write because we love it. Some writers are blessed with instinctive sensitivity that pierces our mental armor to entertain us, inform us, wow us, shock us, and move us. In other words, blow us away. Writing molds imagination, emotion, and knowledge into stories, poems, talks, advice, but perhaps not DIY books. Yes, the knowledge does. I started writing without heeding or reading a single rule or guideline. Be wiser. These days, there are tons of resources to save you both time and effort. When I got sick, I experienced a setback I did not expect. I felt a lot of knowledge was stripped from me with a few swift bouts of chemotherapy. The years of lovingly nurturing poems, literature, history, and even calculus suddenly stood vacant, stripped, lonely. However, having so much to be grateful for, I was determined to bounce back. I knew I wrote well. I knew I had to use whatever information still survived in my brain and rebuild upon it. I was a spontaneous writer anyway. So I let my imagination take me where I could tread with confidence. That is how I began writing children's stories. I could create the setup I wanted, uncomplicated and colorful, where I could relay my messages of hope and love, faith, beauty, and even advice to the most important readers on the planet, the children. And I would do so using language they understood and scenarios they liked. The art of presentation. How to translate inspiration, feelings, knowledge, and energy into a final product. A presentation to a live audience requires a slightly different set of skills than the writing of a poem or story, which will remain on paper. A speaker has the added constraint of time, immediacy, and the stress of facing his audience personally. I'm using he and him, but it is, of course, everybody. The Toastmaster Method. In 1924, the Toastmaster Method was developed to teach presentation and public speaking skills. Over the last 100 years, this evolved to include tools for building self-confidence, listening skills, and teamwork. There are Toastmaster clubs all over the world with a membership of over 350,000 people. I joined a club initially to meet new people and make friends after our return from expatriate life. But the benefits I got out of it have been immeasurable, and they have impacted every aspect of my life. Toastmaster Club meetings encourage and provide ample opportunities to speak before an audience. The standard format of a 2-hour meeting is made up of 3 parts, with a different theme each meeting. We get to present 5 to 7 minute prepared speeches. In the second part, we have impromptu speaking, which is speaking on your feet, where a person volunteers to answer a theme question in 1 to 2 minutes. All the speeches, as well as the entire meeting, are then evaluated. These 3 processes are key to learn, grow, and gain confidence, one speech at a time. Every year, each club holds a speech contest where the best speakers advance to higher levels of competition till they reach the Toastmaster World Championships. My own efforts at competition got me to level 3, and I was thrilled to make it anywhere. I encourage you to look up toastmasters.org and watch World Championship speeches. At Toastmasters, I have seen people totally transformed from being overly shy and withdrawn into confident individuals with strong leadership skills, able to lead groups in discussions and even chair contests. The improvement spills positively onto their personal lives as well. My daughter is one of them. When I joined Toastmasters, it gave me confidence to try my hand at presentations. While still a fresh member, I wrote and presented a couple of 5 to 7 minute speeches, which were very well received. That gave me the wings to continue exploring the world with my pen. My speeches were, and still are, simple, with subjects that appeal to people, from shoe confessions to from nature with love. Google my name and you will find those online. Both have also been published in Family Flavors magazine in Jordan. It seems it was not just the subjects, but the way I presented them that my audiences liked. The perspective, the wording, and more importantly, the use of humor. Was that key? Absolutely. Building content. You have to catch your audience's attention with the first words you utter, your introduction. And after a well-defined body of speech, you need to end it with a strong conclusion, which can be a call to action, a summary of your presentation, or a fitting quotation. As presentations are time sensitive, this obliges you to discard a lot of the scintillating things you initially included in your draft and concentrate on bringing out the essence of your piece to fit the 5 to 7 minute allotted window, or whatever window you have. If it's a TED Talk, it's not 5 to 7 minutes, but you can gauge the time limit allowed. In Toastmaster speaking competitions, you are automatically eliminated if you speak beyond the allotted time. This happened last month, this August, at the Toastmasters World Championships. There was an elimination in the finals, good chap, due to someone going over time. Imagine getting all the way there and going over time. If you can, infuse humor in your presentation. It helps engage with your audience. We don't all have the gift of humor, but your story can be entertaining without having to make people laugh out loud. The humor can be tongue-in-cheek, subtle nuances in description, puns, or witty repartee. Personal stories are always winners. If any of you read Anne Podara's chapter 2, the one we discussed this evening, Damita Loves Jace, submitted for today's critique session, this was a perfect example of a very entertaining piece of writing. Kudos, Anne. Revise. You will be surprised how much revising affects the preparation of a good speech. However perfect my own first drafts usually seem, I find my writing improves dramatically if I step away, then return to it with fresh eyes and a refreshed attitude. How many times have you heard a person boast about a presentation? Oh, I wrote this last night in 5 minutes. Sometimes I can hardly contain my response that it shows. A hastily prepared presentation lacks the depth and polish of one which has been lovingly reworked, sometimes needing only small tweaks here and there. When you finish revising and think your speech is ready, read it aloud to a non-critical audience, like your mirror, your oven, or record it on your phone. Personally, I talk to my sofas. You will catch incongruities invisible on paper, from odd-sounding words to a choppy flow. It's like creating a piece of music with every word eventually resonating perfectly in a much smoother presentation. Your choice of words makes or breaks your wonderful story. Make vocabulary your friend. The English language is rich in descriptive words. Play at replacing a word in a sentence with a more visual one having the same meaning. In this day and age, people have no time. Many have forgotten how to pause their busy, my word, how to relax. Entice them with your words, your magic. Practice how to stand out in the ocean of gifted writers and speakers. How many authors do we know about who have had countless rejections by publishing houses, from publishing houses, for novels which went on to become timeless bestsellers? Weren't we discussing one tonight? John Grisham, was it? Next, imagine your audience. Imagine how you would listen to the speech if you were sitting in that audience, and what would have affected you the most. Not just from the presentation, but also from the speaker. Sometimes things backfire, and your presentation is not as well received as you thought it would be. One common mistake is preparing for the wrong target audience. Talking in front of professionals is not the same as addressing a class of high school students. Perspective, choice of words are different. Accept your setback, swallow your disappointment, and go back to analyze critically but impartially the what and the why. If you think your idea was great, keep it and rework the presentation. If you can bear it, get a mentor. Don't hesitate to ask questions. You will be surprised at the wealth of knowledge others have, which may give you a new point of view or just plain good advice. Listen to others' ideas, but make up your own mind. When you speak to an audience, be present. Don't rush your speech. Give your audience time to connect with your words and your imagery. Pause at important transitions. Use body language to enhance what you are saying. Non-verbal communication is as important to a presentation as the words in the speech. An expressive hand gesture, a complicit smile, appropriate eye contact, and effective voice modulation help you bring the speech to life. Zoom meetings are creating an entirely new culture in speaking in front of an audience. Moving about a room is out. Facial expressions are in, and a good expressive voice is king. You have to consider lighting, background, proximity to the device's camera, your makeup, the top you are wearing, and how to look at the tiny camera and pour your hearts out to a machine. Be true to yourself. No one can express what's in your soul except you. And if you are not sincere, it will show. You are the star of your life, and you choose what you want to share. We don't know what you've prepared for us, or the time and effort you've put into it. We only hear what you present to us. So, if you forget a sentence, or even a full paragraph, we don't know that. You just have to have the presence of mind to continue with your presentation as if nothing untoward happened. This I say from experience. It happened to me at a recent competition, which I still won. My selective memory is my challenge. The 3 fairy wishes. First, do not toy with too many ideas for a presentation. It's too much information for your audience to process. Elaborating on fewer ideas will allow you to go deeper into your subject. The second is a favorite of mine, titles. I don't like obvious titles. I chose Preparing for a Role, about becoming a grandmother, not a meeting role like my friends thought. I found that True Love has a color and a name was fitting about a presentation on Cartier. Final Verdict was a speech about humor where someone thought his name was Shut Up. Fluffy by day, ninja by night described our cat to a T. This last article was also recently published in Family Flavors magazine. Thank you, Hind. The magic ingredient. You have created your masterpiece. You have written, you have revised, you have spoken to your sofa. What will bring your carefully crafted speech to life? Anyone? Passion, my friends. Your passion is the stardust, the difference between a humdrum article and the real diamond. Lastly, do not ignore the butterflies in your tummy. The adrenaline rush will drive you to present the best speech of your life every time. Without it, your speech may sound mechanical. I don't want to say dead. Comfort zone. Armed with all this good advice, why not step out of your comfort zone and try to write and present a subject you know very little or nothing about? See how much more animated your talk will be after you've done all the work, of course. 30 hours is a conservative estimate of the time it took me to prepare this presentation. 1,000,000 ideas, trimmed. I printed, read, timed myself, trimmed again. I worked on the flow and tried to remove repetitions. I put myself in your place and listened. Was it perfect? Certainly not. Was it worthy of your time and attention? I hope my passion and effort put it on the right path. The result is nothing like the first draft, which was plain cordy, full of feelings, sentiments, and the wrong focus about writing. I moved paragraphs around, changed words, and worked on coaxing it into a more professional format. Do you notice the cues? Your audience. There is a target audience for every speech. Even if you have some material ready to use, you have to tailor it to a particular audience for it to have maximum impact. Your audience may be a group of doctors at a symposium, students and teachers, or mothers of toddlers. Never speak down or write down to an audience. It shows and it is not attractive. Accept the audience's gift of their time and attention. Reciprocate with the gift of your best presentation. Facing an audience takes courage, even an audience of one. Courage as the opposite of panic. Facing a doctor usually makes all my symptoms disappear, and along with them, my speaking voice. Reading aloud to a group is the most extraordinary of experiences. It is a wonderful way to connect with people, not just brush against their shell. I stand between the words I read and what my audience will imagine and feel. I am the heroine, the hissing snake, the verdant plant, the painter, the storyteller, and the listener. I convey the information without artifice or interpretation. I become it. Becoming a member of the Hellenic Writers Group of Washington gave my confidence the boost to believe that I had something valuable to offer, however small. The acceptance and validation by this group of talented writers makes me stand taller and is encouraging me to write. Under the guidance of Miss Ipatia Apostolides, I hope my writing will become all the stronger for it. I have a long way to go, and I am learning every day. The author-reader book connection. Speaking skills are essential to be able to connect to your readership or with your readership base on a personal level. Even if and when you meet your fans to promote your book, use the skills of presentation. But above all, remember, it is being present, charismatic, and true that will influence your audience the most. Express your genuineness by presenting a positive attitude, smiling, and leaning in towards them when you are addressing them or reading to them. I would like to recommend to you the following 2 books. The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Deutsch. It's about the plasticity of the brain. And Sophie's World by Justine Gardner, a refreshing take on philosophy. Love those books. My current affiliations are Toastmaster, proofreader and writer at Family Flavors Parenting Magazine in Jordan, and member of the Hellenic Writers Group of Washington, and grandmother. My friends, the power of words is in your hands, from inspiration to delivery. Back to you.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. We can unmute our mics now if you'd like and share our thoughts. And, this is a wonderful, wonderful, inspiring talk. I learned a lot from it. I had good feeling. I could listen to this over and over again. It was wonderful. So I give the floor now to you who are attending this talk. If anybody has questions, just raise your hand or just speak up, and then Andie will answer them. Okay.
Andie, I need you as a teacher. I need you as a teacher. You're not here yet. Are you here?
No, I wish. I was supposed to fly there in just the week that they canceled the flights in March.
Oh.
And now I'm scrambling to find something, but it's scary, you know. No, I'm not there. I'm in Jordan at the time, enjoying it, but I miss being in Washington and all of you and my son and my grandchildren.
It was great. Your speech was great. Very inspiring.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Calliope?
Yeah. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful, inspiring speech, and I admire you. I have a question. Are you you are very good for the theater?
Yeah.
Like an actress.
A bit late.
You never is late.
Okay.
I love theater. I have done it before. I have acted before, and I love it. And you're marvelous.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I wish you were here and we could do something.
Okay, when I come, I'll remember that. We'll get
Yeah,
in English, please. My Greek is not good enough for things.
I enjoyed your speech, and it inspires me, and I want to write now because of you.
Oh, sweetheart. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Kelly. I
your
love
talent, your
poems.
gift.
Thank you.
Dr. Parada, you had a question?
Thank you. I would like to thank Mrs. Andie Petrides for her speech. It was really inspiring, and I agree on this advice, like make the text like as dense as possible, read it aloud to hear the musicality of the text. I fully agree with all of it. I would like, please, if it was possible to clarify something you said, like write for even things you don't know.
Okay, no.
So please, like, clarify that, because
Sure.
I would like to hear more about that. What do you mean?
Now, this started with at Toastmasters. We are given some objectives. For example, next week, write a speech by using props or a debate or describe something. So taking these objectives, I would go and find something I really don't know much about and do my research. Because when you present something, you know it very well and you do it every day, it becomes like a little bit cliche. But when it's something new that you discover, then you have this passion, you want to tell people what you found out and why this subject was great. So it will give your presentation this newness, you know, it's like cooking something for the first time and you are following the recipe and you're excited with the result. And if it's well received, you want to do more. So with this speech, I've done that for, let's say, which kind of speech was it? Something about describing nature. Then, no, describing nature is like run of the mill. Something I really didn't know anything about. Then I go and do the research and write out research and find quotations and try to bring it together. And then I think about my target audience. Is it my fellow writers? Is it kids? How am I going to present it to make the maximum impact? Choose the words, bring it together. So when I present it, then I am more animated because I have discovered something. And I'm discovering with the people that are listening to me. This is what I meant. And I hope
Okay, now it doesn't make sense. So since you start writing, you already know them because you have done the research. Because the way it was heard is like you start writing something you don't know.
I know.
But having done the research, then you know. So it makes sense that you write. So thank you. You answered my question.
Thank you. I added this afternoon quickly. This is why.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. It's well explained. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Thanks.
I think Diane, Dr. Helen Jerry's, writes articles, and I think she basically every article she writes is something new. I've read several of her articles, and Dan, how do you also do this with this new material every single time? We can't hear you.
I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Actually, I try to write articles about questions that I'm interested in, things that I don't know about. And I use the article as an excuse to find something that I want to know about. So I live right, the house behind us is considered haunted. And it's got a long history. So I wrote an article about the house because I wanted to find out what was going on. Does that help?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing, of course.
Can I make a comment? This is Hind. Hind Lara Mango from Family Flavors. I'm very thankful to have Andie as a recent member of our team. And I'd like to comment on what I heard. As a writer, I feel you have to put yourself out there. You have to open yourself up to your readers. And it may seem like, you know, the emotion has to be there.
Oh,
And when you act, the emotion has to be there to make it believable.
oh, my thing is
To
on.
forget that you're actually seeing an actress or an actor. So you have to really believe in the role and in what you're doing, and in the power of the word, as Andie kept on saying. It takes a lot, I think, to be a writer, to be able to put yourself out there and to open yourself up to people. You said something very key, Andie. It's always knowing your audience and who you're addressing that makes it more focused and effective. Regarding the research, I think this is what makes a writer a good writer. And I think, or I know, writers, novelists have teams doing the research for them to make the, you know, historical facts or whatever you're writing about real. So you do need to do a lot of research. Even if you're writing for a magazine like ours, we have to make sure that all the material is backed up with correct information, and we have to do a lot of research. Our editor, Laura Haddad, does a lot. Even Andie, as a proofreader, her, you know, she goes beyond being a proofreader and checks things. So thank you, Andie, and we're very thankful to have you as part of our team and for this inspirational talk and for inviting me to this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate that you came today, and we're very honored to have had Andie speak. I learned a lot more about her, and having lived in these countries that I've never visited, I can imagine how rich her vocabulary is. And, you know, I think you had read to us once a few months ago a passage, and I felt like I was there. I don't remember if it was about Jerusalem, but the way you described it, oh my gosh, it was just so wonderful. So I'd like to see more of that writing.
Sure.
Okay, anybody else before we sign off?
Wow.
I want to say thank you to Andie real quick. I really appreciate everything you said. I was a member of Toastmaster as well. And so I could clearly, you know, visualize what you have to gone through and how that I never ever thought that speaking as a Toastmaster was connecting to the writing this much until you paint all these pictures. And I could clearly see that everything that I'm trying to do as a writer now was what it is in Toastmaster as well. So I really appreciate it. And another thing I want to say to you was, it's really interesting. You mentioned that if you forget something, no one knows. So just go on with it. And that's what's the problem when I'm writing too. Sometimes I wrote and then I told myself, oh my gosh, I forgot to do this. Oh, I should go back. And then sometimes, and I feel frustrated and I have a writer block because I feel, oh, I'm missing this. I'm missing it. How come I did not write this part? And then someone somewhere I heard about this said the same thing to you. The reader doesn't know. You just have to keep on writing. And when you go over that, you know, hurdle, then everything will work out. You just have to making sure you keep on at it. So when you say that, like, you know, if you skip a paragraph, a sentence, no one know, I go, yes, that's true. You know, but sometimes as a writer, we want it to be done perfectly. We feel like we have to be, you know, get everything right. The fact have to be correct. The sentence has to be a certain way. And sometimes that in return make us feel really bad about ourselves and we could not write further. So to hear someone who's so successful like you are, who's so inspirational like you are, you know, I feel like, oh, I'm so grateful to be here today, really is. So thank you again.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andie.
Thanks.
And one more thing, Andie, one of the things that I really enjoyed was when you emphasized revising and how you told us about your 30 hours and trimming and going back. And this is basically what we do when we write. Like you said, you know, if you do you write something real quick, and I do know that when you write something real quick and it comes from the top of your mind, everybody, it's something that you've learned from the universe. It's not really, like you said, deep, and you have to really work on it and work on it to gain more layers of richness and text and context. So that was a very, very good point you made, and I appreciate that.
Experience, my dear.
Yeah.
Every writer does that.
Thank you very much, and it was very, very, very helpful to us, really, especially the speaking part that we were not very good with that.
It's practice, always, every time. You know, when I joined Toastmasters, my son said, you just want to show off that you know a good English. No, it wasn't that at all. It was just to meet people. But along the years, when I look
And
now,
the experience.
Yes, what I used to write before and what I write now, the way it holds together better, it's by doing it again and again and more of it. That's the only way that it improves, unless you're like this top genius.
So what's Anne said that she was also a member of a Toastmaster. So to become a member, what do you do?
You Google Toastmaster near my house, for example, and it will show you which clubs are close to you.
How do you spell that, Toastmaster?
Toast, Master, Master, one word.
So what's the first word, letter?
T.
Oh, T, Toastmaster, like Toastmaster.
Yes, it's like toasting, but it's one word.
Okay.
And all the Toastmaster clubs have the same format. When I was in the States, I went to a couple of meetings, exactly the same like in Jordan or in Japan. Same.
Okay. I see on the bottom there. Yeah, thank you.
It's a good way when you're a tourist and you're visiting a country and you have time, for example, and you just go to one of the meetings. That's how you meet people, you make friends. It's a nice idea, but
Very interesting. Very
yes.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And as for the revising, yeah, I agree with you. And also the knowledge, you have to have the knowledge to write, especially if it's history, you have to really read a lot. I've been doing that for 2 years and still have questions, you know. But I'm learning, you know, and it's interesting.
That's what keeps it alive and interesting. Yes.
No, it is, because this age, at least for me, you know, it keeps me busy and it keeps me going, you know. So it feels good, at least, you know, that I'm doing something. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Stella. Thank you.
If no one has any more questions, we can adjourn. It is a blessing to see you all here.